Hello and welcome. My name is Angie Holden and I'm the blogger behind the Country Chic Cottage. Today we're going to talk about the Flux Ador laser. Now this laser is new on the market, fairly new on the market in the United States. However, it has been released overseas for some time, so it's not a brand new laser. The Flux Ador was actually the world's first printing laser. So it was a laser that could also print, and it was the world's first. Now, I did review another laser that has printing capabilities, and that was the X-Tool M1 Ultra. So occasionally during this video, I will compare this one to that machine because I do have both of them. First thing we want to do is take a look at what comes with this machine, and then we are going to set it up and make some projects. And then of course I'll give my pros, cons, and full review. With the laser, you'll get a quick start guide as well as a sample piece of material, your cords, which include power cord as well as a USB cable, triangular prisms, your vent hose to attach your vent and either vent out the window or attach the other end to an optional air filter accessory. You get some oil, there's an Allen wrench, your laser head itself. Now, the machine I have came with the 20-watt laser head. There is also a 10-watt version, so the wattage of the head you will receive will depend on which one you purchase. And the basic package is just the diode laser head, so it will be 10 watt or 20 watt. There are optional other heads that you can add, and we will talk about those. And you do get a gift card, and this is for Flux Design Market design files. So this is very helpful for getting started with your creations and using this for maybe your first designs. Now the accessories I showed you are packaged inside of your laser, so lift the laser lid up and remove those, as well as any packaging materials. For instance, I have a few more packaging materials to remove out of here. Then we'll want to attach the laser module itself. First thing you're going to want to do is remove the screw that is in the top. Then you'll just line up the laser module with the screw that's on this surface and then press it down into place. That's down and into place, you'll just replace the screw and tighten it down. You would repeat those same steps for changing this laser module. Add the power cord to the back and then add the vent hose with the attached clamp. You can then plug the machine in and turn it on in the back. Startup may take several minutes, and then you just press the arrow, pick your language. Then it will run through and review all the safety precautions. Now you will want to perform a machine test with this one, so we are going to just click the arrow to start the test. It'll run you through those same setup procedures that I just went through in detail, so you can watch the videos right on the screen to set up the machine. Then we can run a homing test. So we're going to press the home button and make sure that the laser moves to home. My laser did fine, and then it will walk you through installing the laser module right on the screen, again with videos. Next is the autofocus. You can lift the lid and add that test piece of material that comes with the machine into the upper left-hand corner. Then you want to move the laser module to where it is over that test piece of wood. Then there's an AF button on the touch panel, and I'm just going to press it for 3 seconds. The laser head will then go down and the probe will touch the material. That is the autofocus. Then we're going to perform a working test. As always, before we get started, we're going to talk about laser safety. Always have a fire extinguisher and or fire blanket on hand at all times when operating a laser. Now, the Flux Ador does have a lid where you're not going to be able to see the laser while it operates. Now this lid is a very dark lid, so it does emit very little light through it. It's actually less than some of the other lasers on the market. You might like that, you might not, but it does protect your eyes. So the lid will remain closed the entire time that the Flux Ador is operating. If you lift it up, the machine will stop. There's also an emergency stop button on the side of the Flux Ador, so you can stop it at any time if something is going wrong or if you see a fire or something like that. And with any laser, when it's cutting, you want to vent the laser. You can either vent that outdoors, or you can purchase an optional air filter accessory and operate it completely indoors. Now, any laser that you use to cut, you always want to make sure you're using laser compatible materials. Some materials can be toxic when cut with the laser. Now, I do have a full video on laser safety, and I would encourage you to watch that, and I will link that in the description below this video. So you're gonna close the lid with that material inside. And you just press the start button on the touchscreen. It will find and load a file. And then it will start a test. Now that the laser is shut off, I can barely see the engraving, but I can see it through this top. You can barely see the laser operate. I can lift this lid, take a look, and everything looks fine. Now you just walk through Wi-Fi connection and setup on the touchscreen. Then you just download the Beam Studio software to continue to use your laser. There are a variety of functions on this front screen while you're using your machine, and we will go through some of those as we make our example projects. So now the Flux Ador is set up and ready to operate. Let's talk about some of the features before we actually dive into a few projects. First of all, I noted that I had the 20-watt diode laser head. There is a 10-watt option as well. And then you can purchase additionally a 2-watt infrared head, and that would be for things like engraving on metal. Your 20-watt or 10-watt laser head is for cutting and engraving wood, acrylic, and so much more. Now the 20-watt is more powerful, so it could do thicker materials as well as deeper engraving. Then optionally you can purchase something like a 2-watt infrared laser head for this machine, and that would be for engraving on metal, and I will do one of those within this video. Then you can also purchase a print head module for this machine. It does not come with it, and that will add on the addition of printing with this machine. And I will do a printing project with this machine as well as cutting and engraving. The working area of this machine is about 16.9 inches by 11.8 inches, and that is just as the machine sits. Optionally, you can purchase a riser base, and with the riser base you do get a pass-through option. That means that you can go as long as you would like. So it's the 16.9 by basically as long as you can get it with the optional riser base. That riser base also adds on a honeycomb tray. As the machine as it sits right here, you can only use those triangular prisms that came with it, and we will be using those. However, if you add on the riser base, you can also add on a honeycomb tray, and I personally prefer a honeycomb tray rather than the prisms. Then with the 20-watt head that I have, you're about a 10mm maximum cut thickness, so that's the maximum it can cut. It can engrave way thicker than that, especially if you add on that riser base. I think you can go like close to 5 inches thick for an engraving. So you can put something inside that is that thick to engrave on the top. The other options that you can add on additionally is a rotary assembly. With that rotary assembly, that gives you the option to engrave things like tumblers. And yes, we're going to engrave a tumbler in this video as well. Some of the built-in features include that autofocus, which you saw in action. There's also a camera inside, and the camera is actually, if you lift this lid, it's actually inside of the front here. So that is a pretty good position for the camera, and we don't have to worry about where the lid is for the camera to operate. And then this machine does have a built-in air assist, which I absolutely love. I really love an air assist on a laser, and I love that it's built into this machine so you don't have to worry about it. And then you saw a little bit of that touchscreen in action, and I must say already that I am in love with the touchscreen. It made setup super easy. You could watch the videos right on the screen for the setup portion. You don't even need my instructions. Just watch the videos on the screen and set it up. And there's going to be even more features as we operate the laser. So the touch screen itself is an amazing addition to this laser. So I am going to be using the Beam Studio, which is the Flux software to operate the laser. However, as an option, you could use Lightburn to operate this laser. However, apparently there's an additional cable you would need. I do not have Lightburn, nor do I use it, so I'm not going to use it within this video, but apparently there's an additional cable you need in order to use Lightburn with this machine, so do be aware of that. The first thing you're going to add to the machine are the triangular prisms. Now there are magnets on these, and they will sort of just stay in place on the bottom. And I'm going to put 2 of those inside, and then add the wood material for the first project we're going to do. Then we'll close the lid and head to the computer. First, open up Beam Studio, and I'm going to use my own file for this first one. So click the image on the left-hand side and find the file on your computer. I'm uploading an SVG file, and I do want to use the laser in this case, so I'm going to say laser. I do want to layer this file, so I'm going to pick layer. Then it'll load my image. For this, I'm going to make a small magnet. So we're going to resize this. For this layer, I'm going to use my 20-watt diode, and I'm going to be engraving. So I'm going to pick wood engraving for this one. Then I'm going to add a layer. And for this layer, I'm going to draw a circle, move the circle over my sunflower, resize it, and then locate my sunflower within the circle. I'm going to click the outside circle, which is the red layer. Again, I'm using my 20-watt diode, but I'm going to be cutting this wood. Within each layer, I can also click the settings button and I can see exactly how big it is. So this is about the size that I would like it to be, so I'm going to leave it like that. There's also a ton of options on the screen, including an offset, an array, nesting, converting to path, but I'm going to keep it simple this time and just make an engraving on a cut wood circle. Now if I click my camera button, I'm going to get a preview of the wood actually in my machine. Next we're going to raise the lid, move the laser module where it's over the wood, and on the front of the machine you want to press the AF or autofocus button. Once you long press the AF button on the front panel, the machine will find the material and autofocus on it. Once you've autofocused and clicked that preview button, you can see the wood on the screen. From there we can hit the back button, we can pick the layers, and then we can move them around on the wood to wherever you would like. So this is a way to locate your material on whatever you have in the Flux Ador. One thing to note before you start is that layer 2, which is the cut layer, should be below layer 1. So whatever layer's on top will process first, and you want your engraving to process first. And you'll just want to close your lid once again, vent out a window, and go ahead and click Start within Beam Studio. This is going to take 7 minutes and 9 seconds to make, and I'm going to go ahead and click Start. You can watch the progress on your computer screen or even the front panel of the Flux Ador. I love this front panel, and I can see exactly what I'm cutting, how much longer it's going to take. I can pause and stop the cut if I need to. Again, I said that the lid of the Flux Ador is very dark, so it is difficult to see inside of it. You can see it with your eyes when it's cutting, but the camera is very hard to capture. So I actually added a camera inside of my Flux Ador, so this is not me looking at the laser because that would be dangerous. This is actually a camera inside of the laser itself. And then you just remove your project from the machine. This is the piece that I both cut and engraved from wood on the Flux Ador, and it turned out great, and I really love the way that this file turned out. The middle is sort of a textured middle, and I will have this file for free in the description below this video. Now we're going to swap that laser head for the infrared laser module and engrave some jewelry. So I'm just swapping it the same way I installed it, but in reverse. Removing the screw from the top, removing the laser head, lining up the new laser head, and then installing the screw on the top. Then I added in my piece of jewelry to the machine. Now I'm putting this on a piece of wood just because it would give me more contrast within the software. Then move the laser head directly over whatever you're going to engrave, and again long press on the autofocus button on the front. Then I'm going to head to Beam Studio and I'm going to preview this. As you can see, the non-working area is a little bit larger with this 2-watt infrared head, so I did have to move my piece around in order to get it into place. Then I resized my design. In order to see this a little bit better on the dark silver, I went ahead and changed the color of my layer. Now this does not matter when you're using the infrared laser head, so you can change it to whatever color you would like in order to get a better look. Resize and move it around on the jewelry charm. Once we're ready to engrave, we'll go ahead and shut the lid and click the process button. I did want to note that every time you install a new laser head, you will need to do some type of calibration. So once again, I'm showing you the inside during this engraving because it is hard to see through the lid, but as you can see, it engraves right over that area. And then when the engraving's done, you just lift the lid and you can remove the piece. So this is why we use that 2-watt infrared head, is to get an engraving on something like this stainless steel charm. And the 2-watt head works for metals to get a really good engraving. The jewelry charm did turn out great. I probably would calibrate this a bit more because I feel like it was off center a little bit. However, after a calibration, I think it would do really well. Next, we're going to use the Rotary accessory. To do that, we will need to install the extension base or riser. To do that, first you want to remove any laser or printing module that you have installed in the laser. Then use a screwdriver to remove the metal base inside of the Ador. You can lift the machine just a little bit to take the base out. Then you'll want to unbox the extension base, remove any packaging material, and remove the honeycomb tray. Place the extension base down on your table, then add the laser on top. You want to try to put the Ador's rubber feet into the 4 openings. There is a height indication inside of the base, and you want it on the same side as the touch screen. Once you have this installed, you're ready to use the laser with the rotary accessory. You can also use the laser without the rotary accessory and just leave this base attached. There's an indicator for your height on the side, and it gives you both inches and millimeters. So whatever thickness your item is, that's where you would place your honeycomb tray. I'm gonna try this with about a 3-inch tumbler, so I'm gonna start on that 3-inch mark. Add the tray inside and just be sure it sits on the pins on all 4 corners. So let's take a look at the rotary accessory itself. First, you will have the roller assembly. Then there is a secondary support. This plate is only used with the printing module for now. I'm going to set that to the side. Then you will have a bracket here that has magnets along it. There will be a secondary bracket here, and that is to do things like wine glasses, and you would alter this with this secondary bracket. I'm going to use this support just as it is. And then there is a cable that we'll be adding to the machine. And then you do have an Allen wrench. So for this portion, most important portion is your rollers. Now I'm going to do a tumbler, a little bit odd cone type shape. If you had just a straight cylindrical object, all you would need was this piece. And all you have to do is press in on this button here, and you can adjust these rollers in and out to fit your object. It's very, very easy to adjust. And so you're just looking for a good width for the tumbler itself. Now this one, because it's smaller at the bottom than it is at the top, we will need this assembly. Now this assembly comes with the wheels further apart. You can move them closer together with your Allen wrench. I'm going to leave them just like they are, and I can put the bottom of my cup on that assembly. And then I'm going to kind of check the level. And you can move these in and out, and that will affect the level. You can also move this up and down with the top that turns, and that will affect the level as well. So I'm going to find something that's a pretty good level, and then finally you want to use this bracket piece. And I found that this particular tumbler, if I move it sort of to the end of these rollers, this bracket piece works best. It will attach here just with the magnets that are on the back, and you just sort of put it inside of your tumbler with these magnets holding it in place. And I'm gonna move it just a little bit. And now, I think everything looks good to me. So what I'm gonna do is just take my fingers and move one of these rollers and just watch it go around. If anything happens during this process, I don't like the way it looks, I could change it up, right? So I could change the level, I could change the position, I could change how wide these rollers are. So you'll just have to play with it on each different kind of tumbler that you use. And I am happy with the results here. So we are going to head to the laser itself. The next thing we're going to need to do is to attach this cable. And we'll attach it inside the laser first. And then we'll add this assembly, and the other end of the cable will go into the back of this assembly. So let's head to the laser and install this cable. The 7-pin end of the cable needs to go on the right-hand side of the machine, and the plug-in is sort of underneath the machine, in between the machine and the base. The instructions say to use a mirror to guide you. I am just using my iPhone on the camera mode so I can see underneath that area. The good news is you only have to do this once, and after that, while you're running your laser, you can push the cord out of the way on the side. To get to this plug, I actually removed the honeycomb tray, so I'm going to reinstall it before adding the rotary tool. And the other end of that cable goes into the end of your rollers on the rotary assembly. Then you can put the rotary assembly on top of the honeycomb tray. I am going to reinstall the 20-watt diode laser head at this time. I then added the entire assembly, just like I just showed you on the table, but inside of the laser, checking the level. Now I did have to move the honeycomb tray down 1, and that was because when I manually moved the laser head, it was hitting my other tumbler. Now you can move the laser head up slightly with the front control panel by using control and then altering the Z-axis up. However, I could not get it up enough for this particular tumbler to be on the second level, so I moved it down to the third level. Alternatively, to move the laser head up and down, you can use the up and down arrows on the bottom of the front control panel. I added the tumbler to the laser in the same manner as I did on the table. And again, I want to check and make sure it turns well and that it's level inside of the laser itself. We're going to move the laser head over the part that we're going to engrave. Hold down autofocus on the front. And now the laser itself is autofocused. I'm starting with that same sunflower design. This time I'm going to add some text. Just press the text button, click over here, and I'm going to use my name. Go over here, click this button, and change the font. Then just line that text up under my sunflower. We're just going to make sure they're on the exact same layer, so I want those together. And in order to use the Rotary tool, we're going to go to Edit, Document Settings, and change to Rotary. Here is where you would also change to a pass-through if you were using that. Then we'll go ahead and click Save. Now we want to click the camera and get an inside view of the laser itself. I'm going to go back. Once again, make sure both of the pieces are picked. Hold the control key down and resize. And then I am going to rotate this. Now the fisheye lens that the camera is using is going to distort the look of this. I opened my laser and moved everything slightly, and I'm going to go ahead and take a new preview. Now you can see that both edges of the tumbler are distorted. So it's really going to depend on where you put this, what the distortion is going to look like. I would like it to get it to where the top edge is not distorted so that I know my design is straight. So now I can see that my tumbler top is about in the center and is fairly straight. So I'm going to put my design as far down from the top as I would like it. You can also lift the lid, hit the frame button within Beam Studio. The head will first move to the home, and then it will show you exactly where it's going to engrave on the tumbler. If you're happy with that, we can go ahead and start the engraving. We want to make sure the 20-watt diode laser head is picked. And for settings, you also want to tell your laser where the center of your rotary is. So we're just going to drag this blue line to the center of this tumbler. And I played around with various places to place this tumbler to get it as straight as possible on my screen so I could really tell the center line. You can also use a piece of tape on the tumbler itself inside of the laser so you can easily verify the center line itself. So I'm going to try a power of 65 and a speed of 4 and go ahead and click the button to start the laser. Once it's complete, lift the lid and then you can remove the tumbler itself. Now this tumbler might have to be cleaned up some because a lot of times there's charring on them, but we'll take a look at the results. The first tumbler that I engraved was this version and it has this holographic underneath it, and I was able to remove the white and you can see the holographic shining through. And it really did work great on this tumbler, and I love the way this one turned out. I actually did a second tumbler. This one's black. It has a gold coating underneath. And I do love the way this one turned out as well. I did a second tumbler because this is like the 40 ounce with the different sizes. I was worried about that rotary tool being able to handle a variety of tumblers. However, this one did work well. I did have to work with it quite a bit to get a level surface in this area and to get everything in the laser right, but I was able to get it. For the next project, we're going to use the print module and then the engraving module. So I'm going to go ahead and switch this out for the print module. You do this in the exact same manner, removing the screw in the back, then lifting this up, removing it, and then we can add the print module. I'm going to pull up an example project to go ahead and calibrate this print module, and for that I have a scrap piece of wood loaded into the Flux Ador, and I have the honeycomb tray at its highest setting. First we'll need to focus the print block onto the wood. There is a small focus block that comes with the print block, and you do not want to focus this without this in place. So you put the focus block in, line it up with the probe that is on the print block. I used my control and lowered the entire head some on the Z-axis so I can line that up, and then press the autofocus button like normal. The front will give you a caution. Make sure that you have that focus block installed and click continue. Then the probe will go down and hit the focus block. Then we can remove that autofocus block. The other thing the print head will come with is something called a priming sticker. You want to place that somewhere over on the side. That will prime the print head. For this, you will put individually each color into here. So this is a 4-color CMYK system. I'm going to use magenta as my example. You want to remove the ink cartridge from the box and shake it gently. Remove the protective clip that comes installed on the ink cartridge. Then you're going to clean the print head with a lint-free wipe. It does come with a lint-free wipe, and you want to spray that with 99% alcohol. And you want to clean this in one direction. So I'm only going to swipe back, and I'm going to do that a few times. And we're going to lift up on the front of this cartridge, and there is a letter on the outside edge. So this will be the outside of the ink cartridge. Just slide that into place. The ink cartridge click into place, and then we'll close this and it will further push it down. This front cover should close completely. Within Beam Studio, I have my example file. This little thing over here is actually where it's going to test. That's where you want it on that priming sticker. So I'm going to take another picture. Now I can see my wood piece, move my print, and I can move my priming piece right over that priming sticker. Now I can shut the door to the laser to do this example. Again, it is going to want you to calibrate before you use it for the first time. So once that example is done, you can see that the Ador will print on wood, and then before it starts that printing process, it prints on your small little test sheet. So now that we have this example done and the print head is calibrated, I am going to go ahead and make a project with the print head. You will need to do a calibration before you start using the print head. For this project, I have an extra large wood box that's very thick. So I have my honeycomb tray on the very bottom, and I'm putting my box on top. Then on top of the wood box I've decided on, I am putting the block for the autofocus. And then I can move the head where it's tall enough, put that block right underneath it, and press autofocus on the front. Hold it down, and it'll autofocus right on there. And then you remove the block. I went ahead and took a picture of the inside. Now, you may note that I'm using some magnets because I want to make sure that this stays exactly in place because I'm going to print and engrave on it. And then I'm just going to import my file, change it to a printing module, and you can see all of my colors on this one. And when you change it to a printing module, you get the same thing that is for that small piece of paper. And then I can resize my piece here. I'm going to put it sort of on the corner of my box, and I'm going to go ahead and add one of those small sheets of printing paper on top of the box. Then I'll just preview the inside once again. You can see my piece of paper, and we'll just make sure that the flower is not on that example sheet. And then I also want to engrave this, so I'm going to add a layer, then import that file as an SVG as laser. When I did that, it did put it on its own layer, so I can remove this layer I added. I'm going to make this first layer a very specific size, so I can size the engraving in the exact same manner. So we'll click the printed layer, click over this menu over here on the right, and I'm going to make it exactly 5 inches wide. Then we'll go back and pick the next layer, click that same button, and do exactly 5 inches wide on it. Now I can layer over the top of that other one. Go to this screen and make sure it is a 20-watt diode laser, and we are going to do a wood engraving with our settings. And then finally, because we want it to print first, we're going to drag the print layer to the top. That will make it print first and then engrave after. And then we can click to send it to the laser. Then you can see this process inside the laser. Now you will note with this printing module, you do have to change out the colors. So it prints one color, you change the cartridge out, it prints the next color. That does make printing rather slow with this laser. The front panel does prompt you each time you need to make a tool change. Printing is complete, it will ask you to change the laser module. I'm going to go ahead and remove that little ink piece of paper, and the printing looks really great, so we're going to go ahead and change this out. You always want to remove the cartridge and put it back in the original packaging with the protective cover on it. And we can remove this piece. And I'm going to be very careful not to move the box. Install the laser piece, and you want to go ahead and auto focus that one more time just to make sure that it is focused. Then you can close the lid and click continue on the front panel. Be sure to vent the laser out a window or use the air purifier accessory. Once the engrave is complete, we can remove it from the laser. And we'll take a closer look at this. So here's this design up close. It looks really good. And again, this is on a box that is fairly tall. So this is an example of a tall project that you can do. Now, even though it printed all 4 different colors at different times, the printing turned out really good. And the reason the outline is now brown is because now the outline is engraved, which is what I wanted. So I wanted this engraved look, but adding the color to it. Now, if you will note over here, there is some magenta ink. I had issues with this when I was changing the cartridge out several different times. So what I would probably do is to put some type of piece of paper under the module while you're changing the cartridge out. That way, if your ink leaks, it doesn't leak onto the surface of your project itself. So I would caution you on adding that step to the process. Even though that is not noted on any of their documentation, I would add that because this is not the only time this happened to me. So now you can see that this can print and engrave all in the same step. It can also print and then cut, so you can mix and match the operations with the print feature. Now I've made several projects with the Flux Ador. Let's talk pros and cons and my overall review of this laser. Now before I dive into the pros and cons, I do want to note that the print module would not work with the original laser that I was sent. I tried several different things and troubleshooting with the company, and it just would not work. They ended up sending me an entirely new laser. So working with their customer service was a good experience. However, I did want to note that this is my second laser for the printing process because it would not work with the first laser that was sent to me. All right, so now pros and cons of this laser. Pros are that it is a very good laser and it is extremely well built. That's kind of the first thing I'm looking for with these lasers now. This is a heavy laser, metal construction, so you don't have to worry about it being flimsy at all. With the exception of the lid, which I will put in the con section of this review. More pros are that it has an air assist already on it. It does a great job with everything that I tried. So I did engraving, I did cutting, I did 2-watt engraving on metal, and I did the printing process, and it did a great job with all of those. The modules are very easy to swap out. Now I will say that swapping the cartridges out in the print module is a little more difficult, takes a little getting used to, and I'm not crazy about having to swap them out all the time for printing, so that will probably land on that con list as well. But overall, it did a really good job. Probably my biggest pro for this machine is that front control panel. It is extremely convenient to have that front control panel right there, showing you exactly what you're doing, how much time is left. Like once you send it from your device to the laser, it's like you don't even have to look at the device anymore. You can do everything on the touch screen, and I absolutely loved that feature. Plus, it made the setup so easy. I could see videos right on the screen for how to set this machine up. So as I was setting it up, if I had any questions, I could just reference the video right on the screen and not have to even look anything up on my computer. So overall, that is probably my biggest pro, is that touchscreen on the front and just how great it is and how easy it makes everything. I do love that you can add the rotary accessory and that you can add this riser base. And then with the riser base, you have a pass-through, so that opens up a wider material size. Now, I'm usually not a fan of triangular prisms. So the machine itself, if you don't purchase the riser base, comes with triangular prisms. I am generally not a fan of those. However, the ones that come with this machine have magnets on them that hold them into place, and I must say that they're probably the best triangular prisms that I have used. I still kind of would like to see some type of thing where you could set them up and put them all in there. You could just put the entire rack of triangular prisms in and remove an entire rack instead of laying them in one by one. However, if you have to use triangular prisms, these are definitely the best ones that I have used. And then for me, it is a pro that you can get a honeycomb tray with the machine because I like a honeycomb tray. Now, you can only get it if you do the riser base with this one, so you would need that additional purchase. So let's talk about the con list. My number one con is going to be the lid. It was very flimsy for me. Now, on the first laser that I had, it just would not stay open and it was very annoying to me. And so I do think it was possibly damaged in shipment because the second laser they have sent me, it does not do that. So I do think the lid was potentially damaged in shipment because this lid stays open fine. So I am going to guess that the machine I originally got was damaged in shipment. So that is actually my hope that that is all it was and it wasn't something with the manufacturing process of the machine itself. Now, another con with this one, that hose that attaches to the back in order for you to ventilate the machine, it is extremely flimsy and I already sort of crushed it once. Now, it kind of goes back into shape pretty easily, but I just kind of panicked when I crushed it the first time. So I would say it's pretty flimsy and you might crush it, but you can kind of shape it back with your hand. But again, I would have liked to seen a better hose situation on the back so I wouldn't be worried about completely crushing it at any point and sort of cutting off my airflow. Now my next con is going to be when you add this machine to the riser base, it is extremely tall. For me, that is a con because it is kind of difficult to get inside here on a standard size table. So what I recommend is with a machine like this is that you purchase a lower table or a table that's adjustable in height so you can get it to a height where you can really get in there and work. I'm gonna go back to that lid again. It is just so dark that you can barely see what is happening inside the laser. And while that's great for safety, it's not great on the side of I want to see what the laser's doing so I can stop it if I have done something wrong or if something is happening that I didn't intend for to happen. So I kind of like to actually see the laser running and it is very difficult to do that with this machine. And the software, while I didn't have any issues with it at all, it worked really well. I will say that there's a slight learning curve with it and it does seem to be fairly new as far as software goes, and I'm hoping they'll make improvements on that over time. Now, if you use Lightburn on the software side, you do have to purchase an additional cable to use Lightburn with this machine, and I think you need to have it plugged up all the time from what I'm reading. I don't personally use Lightburn, but I would research that if you want to use Lightburn with this machine. Small con is that when you boot this machine up, it does take several seconds for the front control panel to actually light up and start. And the first few times I started this machine up, I thought it wasn't working and that it wasn't going to start up. Now, if you will notice, when you start the machine up and when you plug it in, there is a light on the button on the side over here. However, I didn't notice that the first few times and I just sort of panicked. So while that is a very small con, I did want to mention it in this video just in case you are panicking as well because you might not think your laser is starting. And then finally, on the accessory side, one of my cons would be that rotary accessory. I'm not a huge fan of a rotary accessory that is rollers like the one that is for this machine. I much prefer something with a chuck. I just think that those fit a wider range of materials. And the one with the rollers, you just have to play with it quite a bit to get some of those odder tumblers set up. So I went ahead and did a 40-ounce tumbler off camera just to test this theory because I wasn't sure if it would even do one of the big 40-ounce Stanley type tumblers. It did work, however, I did have to play with it for a long time to get it exactly in location and exactly right within the machine. So I would say that for me, the rotary accessory being the roller type is a con because those types are harder to set up for me. And speaking of the setup on the rotary accessory, I showed you where I had to put the plug in and use my phone or a mirror or something to see up underneath there. It is extremely challenging to get that plug set up with the rotary accessory. I almost found that if I just kind of took the machine off the base, had someone hold it while I put that plug in, it was a better experience for me. Now the instructions said to use a mirror and go inside there, and I found that a bit on the frustrating side. when setting up that rotary tool. So I do want to note that as well. Then I am going to say my final con for this one is going to be the camera and the location of the camera. You saw in this video some of the sort of the fisheye look that I got with that camera. It was extreme in a lot of cases. It made locating the designs for me a bit tougher. I was able to get around it. I did get used to it. However, it can be tough to locate things with that fisheye look on the camera, especially for someone that's new to laser crafting. So now, what is my review of the Flux Ador laser? I would say overall it is an extremely good laser. I do love how well built it is. I love the options for the heads, including that extra print head to make a project like the box that I made in this video. I think that opens up a wider range of projects if you are looking for something with that print capability and with the cut and engrave ability of a laser. This one might be for you. Now, I would take into account all of the cons that I went through in this video, and I do always want you to take into account my experience. So while my experience with their customer service was extremely positive, I did have to have interactions with them with the laser because, like I said, the first laser that was sent to me would not work with the print module. I might have had a few other issues after I got into this new laser, so I did want to note that and just keep that in mind when you're considering the Flux Ador. But overall, I did a great job on the projects that I made, and I will say that this is a great laser for a beginner because the setup was so easy and the touchscreen makes using the laser very, very user-friendly. So I will say for beginners, this might be a really great laser to consider. So now, if you have any questions about the Flux Ador, how it works, or you have project ideas that you think I should try with this one, drop down in the comment section and tell me all of those. If you liked this video and it helped you, give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, head on over to my YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. I have videos just like this one every single week, and trust me, you don't want to miss any of those. So thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.